Hello, and welcome to Management 583, Strategic Planning and Implementation. I'm Dr. Greg Parsons. I'll be your instructor for this course. And I've prepared this short video to introduce you, give you an overview of the course and some of the specifics. Now, a lot of this will be review, I expect, because you've taken other courses with Kaiser and with Blackboard. However, just to start out on the same page so we understand each other, I'm going to go over some parts of the syllabus and how the course is going to be set up. There will be following videos. For each week I'll have an assignment video to explain the assignment for that week, and I'll also be going over specific details about how Safe Assign works for turning in your assignments, your discussion, and your papers, as well as how the rubrics work, which means that's the way that I'm grading your papers and discussions against a particular set of criteria, and I'd like to make sure that you understand that. So I hope you find this useful and not too long. So sit back and enjoy yourself, and good luck in the class, and I'll be talking to you later. When you begin your class from your home page, normally you'll first go to Meet Your Professor, in the beginning at least. And so if you click on Meet Your Professor, you'll see my bio information, a little bit of a welcome. And this basically is a repeat of what I would put into my welcoming message to you and the welcoming email that I sent to you. The next thing you normally go to is the course syllabus, which is here. And you'll see the course description and the related objectives, and basically, again, it's a good idea to print this off so you have this available to you. But what I really want to review in this introductory session is the textbook that we'll be using, which is Essentials of Strategic Management, the 5th edition, Hunger and Wheeler by Prentice Hall. And that you're going to need for this class. If you don't have it, you should order it overnight, get it to you so that you can keep up with the assignments. The other thing I wanted to mention on this particular page of the syllabus is the grading system, which is the standard Kaiser graduate school breakdown. 90% and above are A's, 80 to 89% B's, 70 to 79% C's, and less than 70% is considered an F. Some more things from the syllabus that are a good thing to go over so that we're on the same page. Late assignments. If you turn in work late from the date that it's assigned, if it's up to 1 week late, you'll lose 10% of the grade that you received after the assignment is graded. So for example, if you turned in a written assignment, an article review for example, but you didn't get it in until Wednesday of the following week, and you got 90%, 90 points on that, well then you would lose 10% of that 90, or 9 points, and you would end up with an 81 on that assignment. So the penalties get progressively worse. Up to 2 weeks late are 20% off, 3 weeks late 30% off, 4 weeks late 40% off, and once you're over 4 weeks late, 50% off. Now this applies to work up until the last week. Once we're into week 8, the late policy doesn't apply. You can't turn in things 4 weeks late. How to avoid plagiarism. I'm sure your instructors have gone over this before. We'll be working with this more in the classroom itself. But plagiarism by ignorance, you didn't realize what you were doing was plagiarizing, is an offense, but not so significant. It's like a misdemeanor. Copying somebody else's paper, turning it into your own, is major offense. That's like a felony, and you don't get put in jail, but bad things happen. Another thing I'd like to talk about here is graduate student incomplete policy. To be available for incomplete. So assume we're coming to the end of the class. We're in week number 8, and you have some terrible thing happen and you're not able to complete your work. Could you ask for an incomplete? Well, yes, you can. You have to come to me before the end of the class and say that you're going to need some more time. At that point, I'd review the amount of work that's been completed. If 70% of the coursework was already completed, then you would be eligible to go for an incomplete. That means when I turn in grades for the end of the class, you get an I. And then the work that is going to be turned in to complete the class must be turned in within 4 weeks of that date. And again, it's sort of an agreement between yourself and the instructor, in this case me, about when the work is going to be completed. The downside of all this is, unless there are extenuating circumstances, the highest grade you can get working off an incomplete would be a B. And if you do not finish the work that was not completed by the end of the class within the 4-week period, the timeline, then you'll get an F. Or whatever grade was earned at that point. Student probation will not be granted incompletes. Another thing that's important comes off of the syllabus is how your assignments are not graded, but how they're evaluated in terms of how much they're worth. So every week we're going to have a discussion topic, each of the 8 weeks. Each of those discussions that you participate in are worth 2.5%. So if you do everything right and you do a great discussion, initial post, and great responses, and you turn everything in on time, the most you're going to get for that week's work in the discussion post is 2.5 points. Over the entire 8-week period, it starts to add up, so if you've got 100% on all the discussion posts, that would be 20% of your grade at 100%. There are going to be 2 article reviews, and the first one comes up in the first week's assignment. Each article review is worth 5%, so both of them together will be 10%. There's a description of organization paper coming up that's worth 5%, an environmental and financial analysis paper that's worth 15%, a strategic choice goals and implementation paper which is worth 10%, and then the biggie is a strategic plan for the chosen organization. That's going to be 30%, and then you'll be turning in a PowerPoint presentation for 10%. All totaled up, that would be 100%. So the thing to take away from this is many times students are kind of confused if they think they're doing great, getting good grades on their discussions, and their final grade turns out not to be so good. They say, well, I was getting 90, 95% on all my discussion posts. The problem is they're not worth too much. Individually, they're not worth very much. If you decided you weren't going to do or not going to spend much time doing the 30% assignment, and you only, say, got 70% on that, well, then your whole grade is going to be tilted because of the one high value assignment. So these percentages are important because they tell us how much each assignment is going to be worth. Okay, so we've kind of gone over the basics of the syllabus, and now we're going to get started with the class. Next step is to go down back to your home page and hit the Start Here button, and this will bring up the screen that I'm showing you here. So the blue arrow, it means push Start Here, and the next thing we're going to do is investigate the Kaiser Online Library. That's the second blue arrow. They've got a new splash screen for this, but it's useful because it gives you the information that you need. Coming in as a student, you're going to use your student ID number, and your password is the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. Okay. And then you hit login, and that takes you into the library. Now, I'll be doing more with what you do once you're in the library a little later, but again, I assume that you've been in the library and have done some of the assignments there, so it won't be entirely a new thing. But I just kind of walking everybody through the process so that if anybody is coming in and this may be one of their first Blackboard classes, that they kind of know what's going on. So we go back to our Start Here page, and now we're going to look at introductions. And as you've learned, you can't just push anything. You got to punch the right button on this, and that is going to be the Introductions Forum. You'll click on the words Introduction Forum where the blue arrow is in. That'll bring you to this screen, and again you push the blue highlighted Introductions where the blue arrow is pointing. That brings you to this screen, and the instructions are to introduce yourself, describe what your goals are academically and professionally, and what do you hope to gain from this course. The only thing I want to add to that is whenever you reply to the initial question, and this applies to the discussion posts also, you always want to hit the reply on the initial post, on the anonymous one up here. That allows me to be able to see which responses, which posts are coming back to the original question, as opposed to a response to one of the other questions that one of your classmates have put in there. Okay, so when you're posting your first post, your initial post, always go back to the top post and hit the reply on that initial post. Okay, so we finished up our introductions. Now we're going to look at Ask Questions. Push the Ask Questions button, then the Ask Question. And that brings you to this page, and then you'll hit the Post Questions here. The idea is if you have a question about something in the class, more than likely another student has the same question, and rather than answer each question individually through emails to the students, we can start a question and answer session here that everybody can tune into and get the latest information. I'll generally post announcements on the home page so that if new information is available or if something has changed that you need to know about, I will post it on the home page announcements and then send out a email to support that also. So part of my job is to keep you informed about what's going on in the classroom so that you don't get caught unawares. And I encourage you to use the Ask Questions. Again, when you're responding to the initial question and not one of the other classmates' posts, please use the reply to the initial posting and not one of the other questions. So I can figure out, I know what's going on, I can tell who's adding new questions. And then finally, off the Start Here page, we're going to look at course resources. And here's where you're going to find PowerPoint presentations for the chapters. Part of your assignment is to review the PowerPoint assignments for the first week. For the chapters that are assigned, this is where you're going to find those. You simply click on the words PowerPoint Chapter 1, and after a few minutes it will, well, minutes, but depending on your computer speed, it may take 30 seconds to a minute to load the PowerPoint. Okay. The other things on this page we'll get into a little later: the grading criteria for online discussions, the grading criteria for papers. As we get further into the class, that'll become more relevant, but I just wanted to show you where you're going to find the PowerPoints and also where you're going to find your strategic plan outline when we get to that part of the class. So let's wrap this up. Most of this hopefully is familiar to you, and all I'm doing is reinforcing what you already know. If something seems unfamiliar or something is different than you thought the way it worked, we should certainly contact me to make sure that we're working from the same playbook. The keys to success: get your textbook. You're going to need it. If you don't have it already, make plans to get it as quickly as possible. Again, going back to the late assignments, I do not tolerate things coming in late unless you've got a really good excuse. I didn't get my textbook isn't a very good excuse, so make sure that you get on top of that. Be familiar with the course schedule and the requirements for the class. We all have other things that we do besides go to school, and you should kind of have a plan and to schedule your time to be able to commit the appropriate amount of time to the work that's going to be needed for the class. Be aware of the value of the different assignments. I went over the breakdown of the different percentages for the different assignments, and it's important as you kind of are deciding what you're going to spend your time on to know what's worth, one thing is worth more than another. Okay, so refer to that if you are trying to make a decision and you don't know which way to go. And finally, as everybody always says, the worst question is the one you don't ask. So if you have any questions, I'm available through my email, through Ask Questions in the Class, through my cell phone and text message, which is in the Meet Your Professor and also on the syllabus. So there's no real excuse for having a question that you feel like you can't ask anybody. I'm the first step in the whole line of answerers, so if I can't answer the question, I'll find somebody else who can, and but you start the process. So anyway, that's the introduction and overview of this class, I think you should have a good time with it. We've got some interesting things coming up. And if you have any questions, please get in touch with me. Good luck.